Chris Mc Loone here with Fire Apparatus and Emergency Equipment. Welcome to this edition of our podcast. Today's episode is Inside FMI, very well-known company that has upfitted countless rigs throughout the fire service over the years. I have two people from FMI today. First is Oran McNabb. He is the president of Automotive Solutions Group, ISG, which is the owner of FMI. Second is Zach Summers. He is an FMI design coordinator. We're going to talk to Zach about his history with the company in a little while. But first, to get us started off, Oran, I'm going to start with you. Could you talk about how FMI fits into the overall evolution of ISG? It's been many years. You guys also own Amdor, another well-known brand in the fire service, and you were looking to take that next step. So talk about how FMI fit into that.
Sure. Thanks, Chris, and appreciate you having us on today. So ISG started in the late 1960s, and for many years we were really focused on what we call access solutions. So originally we were associated with a company called Whiting Door Manufacturing. Whiting was the inventor of the world's first practical roll-up door for use in the transportation industry. We also have an investment in a company called Actuel, which is based in Europe, which makes linear actuators. And then you have the emergency services piece of our business, which includes Amdor roll-up door, Lumibar LED lighting, and then as of a couple of years ago, FMI, which many people on today's call might recognize originally as Fire Marine.
So you bring FMI into the fold, and then there had to be, a plan in place, that you wanted to sort of hatch with FMI as you brought it into the fold and sort of figured out how it complemented other parts of your business. Talk about that.
Sure. So it was kind of an evolution over a period of months, if not years. And so, Chris, we've talked over the years about a couple of major trends in the fire service. One of them being every year firefighters are being asked to do more and more jobs, loading more gear onto the truck. So that's number one. Number two is increasing lead times. I know that if you go back 10 years, 15, 20 years ago, you used to be able to turn around a fire truck pretty quick. And it's incredible when you look at the way the process has evolved. We now spend, let's say, 1 to 2 years designing the truck. Then you wait 3, maybe 4 years if it's a custom rig for the truck to arrive. And more often than not, that new rig arrives at the dealer or at the fire department, and very little thought has been put into how to get all of the gear onto the truck. And so from our experience on the Amdor side, we work with all of the major OEMs in the industry. We're accustomed to getting very detailed dimensions months before the truck is built. And so our thought process was that if we were able to marry up the information that we get on the Amdor side and start designing and laying out the truck before the truck arrives, you could really speed up that process of getting the equipment mounted and getting the truck where it needs to be out in the community with the firefighters. Now, you can't just snap your fingers and all of a sudden start a new company from scratch. It takes years to buy equipment, to hire employees, to develop the skill set. And so we thought long and hard, what are we good at doing? We're good at scaling businesses. We have good relationships with the industry. And we started thinking about FMI. And FMI had been viewed as the leader in compartment management for years, and they just happened to be an Amdor customer. So we sat down with the founders of the company and said, what are you looking to do with the business? And they had been looking to scale for quite a while, but didn't know where to start. And so over a period of months, we figured if FMI was able to come into the fold with ISG, we could provide the resources to allow them to scale the business, and they could focus on what they're really good at doing, which is innovation and installations.
So once you bring FMI into the fold, FMI wanted to scale. This is where ISG's expertise came into play. What was the plan at that point?
Yeah, so it was a really interesting process. So I only knew Fire Marine from the fire service. And so when we sat down with the team, it was interesting for us to learn the history of the company, where originally they came together as two firms. One of them actually built boats. And so that's where the marine aspect comes into that name. They were also doing things like manufacturing concession trailers. And so we thought to ourselves, that's interesting, but ISG is really focused on the fire service, or civil defense is one of the other terms that we used. So we made the decision to exit the concession trailers business exit the marine business and focus exclusively on the emergency services business. And so when we looked at it, we thought to ourselves, okay, how can we really speed up this process on the design side? And so one of the major investments that we made was designing a proprietary configurator that allowed us, with our AMDOR relationships, to work with the OEMs, the dealers, and the end users to get all of the dimensions loaded into a software package and then be able to visualize everything, almost like you're in a video game, spin the truck around, move your tools for compartment to compartment, see how everything looks, actually automatically calculate the weight distribution on the truck. And then we decided you also have to be able to deal with stakeholders that aren't firefighters. Sometimes the checks are signed by someone who's not a professional firefighter. And so it's important for us to develop a detailed bill of material and a detailed price quote so that after we dealt with the department, they could then go to the people that signed the checks and say, here's an image of what we're going to get at the end. Here's a detailed bill of material. This is the day the project's going to be completed. And this is what it's going to cost down to the penny so it doesn't become a black hole that eats up weeks or months.
And what about infrastructure? FMI had, its own operations there. Was there anything infrastructure-wise at FMI that ISG added to the mix?
We did, and FMI, had a great base to start from. 10-acre site, 70,000 square feet of buildings, all dedicated to manufacturing. Multiple Trump lasers, brake presses up to 230 tons. 60-foot paint booth, 10 Dynasty inverter welding stations, all the stuff you would normally want. After ISG came in, we really focused on things like safety. We ended up installing the largest time saver machine in the US market that allows us to take really large sheets of material and clean them up after they go through the laser, and really focusing on things like the configurator and installing an ERP system, which they hadn't had up until that point.
I think that brings us up to Zach now. Zach has quite a history with FMI. Zach, I was wondering, could you just introduce yourself to the audience here? Talk about your history with the company and talk about the in-house white glove builds that you guys are known for.
Yeah, so I basically grew up with the company. I was the kid that went to school, came out of school in the evenings, was working on fire trucks, and basically worked my way into where I'm at now, and would like to see the company on its future trajectory. As far as in-house goes, it's been very rewarding to have in-house trucks. We're getting into more of the build and ship and to have our in-house trucks that we do in here. So to be able to meet with fire departments hands-on and really just help them along the way of mounting the gear in their truck. What we like to see here at FMI is you delete your OEM package, which is going to allow you to have an allowance to bring over here from your dealer and let us start fresh. Let us do the package. Let us compartment management, not just mounting gear, but manage the compartment for you.
Talk about the build and ship. A lot of people probably think that for FMI to do the work on the compartments, those trucks need to go to your facility, but that's not exactly the case. Is that correct?
No. So we're making it more to where we can reach more of the U.S. Obviously, we do it really well with Pennsylvania and the West Virginia style trucks, which are located around Ohio. How do we get to California trucks? How do we get to Texas trucks? Sending out packages that are very drop-in, easy to install. You can send them over to your dealer. Your dealer's able to install them. They're already thought out of where everything's going to go. Just need to be installed by somebody other than our installers here at FMI.
You mentioned a term, and I think it is an important term, and it's one I wanted to touch on, and that's compartment management. Oran also talked a little bit about it. When we think about putting equipment in compartments, most of the time we're simply thinking of the mounting of the equipment, but not managing the compartment. Could you talk a bit about that compartment management concept and what that means to FMI and why it's important for the fire service?
Yeah, so if you're fans of our Facebook page, you're going to hear a lot of dead space killing. We don't like dead space in these compartments. You're going to pay upwards of $1 million in plus for these rigs. We want you to utilize every square inch of these rigs. Get every bit of space in there. Tools, everything has a home. Well, down to us installing the package, mounting gear to that package, utilizing the walls, utilizing shallow spaces, really utilizing areas in that truck that you don't even think, hey, we can use that area. Yeah, of course you can use that area. And we're not only going to use it, we're going to make it usable and user friendly. Everything's going to have a home on the truck. Everything's visually there. You pull up to the scene on the truck. You're not fumbling around on horizontal shelves. You've trained on this truck. You know where everything's at on the truck. It's making you more confident, and you know how it is. Seconds count.
Now, when you are doing this, there has got to be a lot of back and forth with the fire departments, and their apparatus purchasing committees, for example, to talk about, those places that, those dead space areas that they've never even thought about using. And there has to be, and they probably have, their own idea of how they want to make the truck that they're building as efficient as it possibly can be in terms of getting equipment off. Now, how does that process work? Is that something where we should jump right into the configurator now to talk about that? Or I'm thinking that there must be just a lot of back and forth, during that whole process. How do you manage something like that going, especially if they can't be there to go through it with you and visualize it?
It's more like a 50-50, whereas, we're both coming to the table, and we really encourage them to check out our Facebook page, do some research, see what we've done in trucks in the past, and bring that to the table. Well, when we sit down for our, what we call a pre-con meeting, where we're going to discuss the layout of the truck, I really encourage them to have done their homework, B, kind of have a look and feel of how they want the truck, and then rely on us here at FMI, the experts, to really help you steer that into a good direction. And then from there, your ideas married up with FMI's ideas, you've got something going on right there with the compartment management, and you've got a rig that's going to stand the test of time 30 years plus with you.
Just talk about the materials you use real quick for all the compartment configurations. Is that all going to be aluminum?
Yeah, primarily aluminum, 1/8 inch, 3/16. Everything's fully TIG welded here. A little bit of MIG welding here and there, but full TIG welded. And we do a lot of wrapping, so we're not just welding the outside; we're wrapping the inside. Really making stuff stand the test of time. Maybe a little bit overbuilt. But we see overbuilt as standing test of time.
So Oran, in his when he was talking to us about some of the things that have come along the way, mentioned a configurator, and I think that's probably what sort of ties all this together, and also as an added benefit, can help to get that truck in service a little quicker. Oran mentioned some of the build times, some of the lead times that we're dealing with in the fire service right now, and getting those rigs in service. And a lot of times, the truck is built, it lands at the dealer, and in some ways the work has only just begun, because now we're going to get into the compartment management and mounting the equipment and all that. So talk a bit explain to me what the configurator is, give a little background on that, and then talk a bit about, how that is also helping us get the trucks in service sooner.
Yeah, so the configurator is a tremendous tool for us. It's if you're familiar with FMI, and if you've been to FMI as a fire department in the past, you've seen the napkin sketches that we've built compartments off of. We've built some great compartments off of napkin sketches, right? And to take that just a step further, from the napkin sketches to where we started working on an iPad, started working with KB Mac and getting this configurator to where it's a more visual, to where we're able to go into that pre-con and give you a visual at the end of it. Usually I like to go into the pre-con with my design associate. She works in the background, so she's working the configurator as I'm talking to the fire department. So when we get done with that meeting, rather than us taking our notes and we'll see you in 6 weeks with a drawing, we're almost able to give you a visual right then and there, give you the weights, show you the materials that we've used in there, and give you almost 90% right there on that first initial meeting. Go back, clean it up. We come back in say a week, we're all ready to go and sign contracts at that point. So we've really eliminated that 6 week lead time on getting designs back out to you to where we're showing you designs live in our pre-cons.
As you've been talking, and when you went over your history with the company, coming up from just being a kid and going there after school and working on these things, you must have seen over the years some very, very interesting layouts and compartment management applications. Some of them may have come from a fire department that just kind of made you scratch your head and be like, I've got no idea how we're going to pull that one off. With what they wanted. But could you talk a little bit about maybe some of the more creative compartment managing applications you've been involved with, and maybe if there was a particularly challenging task in front of you in terms of what the fire department was asking you to do in terms of not only putting the equipment there, but making it as quick as possible to get off the truck.
Yeah, no, so we've seen just about everything here at FMI, down to snow cone machines and Pennsylvania trucks for rehabs, I would say what we see the most challenging here is transverse trucks, big heavy rescues. It's a lot different than setting up like a pumper with a compartment L1, L2, L3. They have rear walls. It's basically a compartment. Those transverse trucks, making those usable, some fire departments aren't going to use the transverse aspect. They want them cut off. So you got to make sure everything's marrying together in the middle. Some of it's transverse with the aspect of it's not transverse on this side of the compartment, but it's going to be transverse on that side. We had a truck that, if you check out our Facebook page, Brighton, Pennsylvania, it was a transverse style heavy rescue truck. And we literally built a ladder that folded out of the truck that where you could now climb up into that transverse section. And now you're standing in the middle of the truck and there's shelving up here behind the roll-up doors that you don't even see. I mean, who thinks to utilize the space behind the roll-up door in a transverse? FMI. We wanted no dead space. No, dead space means we're going to utilize that space up that no one even sees in a transverse style rig. I know that if you check out the video on Brighton, they stored a lot of that stuff that wasn't primary stuff, like vacuums and stuff like that, rehab stuff that they wanted to bring to the scene with them, but didn't need to be in a compartment down below, but still wanted to take it to the scene with them.
How much consulting do you find that you need to do when a fire department is coming to you? How many times, I guess, sometimes being a consultant with these things is actually having to say no, where, like you want to give them what they're asking for, but it just, it's just not going to be feasible. How often do you find yourself in those types of positions? And then how challenging is it then to come up with a solution for the department that by necessity has to be different than what they asked for?
Well, Chris, this is going to be a little bit tricky because that's my kryptonite is no. I don't like to say no. I like to basically entertain any idea on a truck. But it's basically just looking at it and making sure it's practical. Does that make sense? Have we done it before? Is it gonna serve you on the scene? Does it make sense? And then again, I mean, going back to, I'm not just dictating what goes into the truck. If I have a concern with it, I'm going to go back and talk with the whole team. It is really a team effort here at FMI, down to the engineers, down to consulting the installers on the floor, meeting with the install supervisors, really figuring out the best solution for that rig.
Well, Oran, over the years, I mean, but even before FMI came into the fold, there must have been some times where, unfortunately, you had to say no. Is that too far off the?
Yeah,
too far off base?
I think that's fair. I think a lot of people in the industry know that the owner of our company is Bruce Whitehouse, who's a civil engineer by trade. And so one of the sayings that we've had around ISG for decades is that we build components designed by engineers, not accountants. So there are times where you have to say no. And when you come to FMI, let's be honest, it's almost like going to Disneyland for upfitting of fire trucks. And quite often, especially when departments are on site and looking at a neighboring truck in the build bay, they can get pretty excited about some ideas. So as we were talking, I can think of a couple of situations where someone at the last minute decides that they want to bolt something onto the end of an aerial. and we'll say, we're not going to start drilling holes into an aerial and slapping 300 pounds onto the tip load at the end. Not a good idea. And quite often in those situations, somebody will put their hand up and say, well, company ABC up the street will do it. And we'll say, okay, let's have that discussion. But if you're going to go down that path, you're probably going to have to go up the street. When FMI puts their name behind it, along with ISG, we expect it to last for 20 years and not to get a call that something is broken after 6 months, or heaven forbid, somebody has gotten injured.
Some of the things we hear, and I promise I'll let you go soon. Some of the things we hear about are, planning for the future. Like we don't want to just lay out a truck for the equipment that we have presently. We want to leave space for future equipment purchases. Maybe taking, I'm thinking maybe you're taking extrication equipment out of service and adding new ones that are different. How often, how do you help prepare a company or a fire department for that future growth on that rig?
Well, we build off unistrut in the compartment. So everything's adjustable. Everything's able to be moved around in the future. And we like that aspect of building off the unistrut just for that adjustability in the future. And then B, going into our products here at FMI. Let's take, for instance, the FMI Lazy Susan holding extrication tools, which is available in a 20 to 24-inch platform, holding anywhere from 3 to 4 tools on there. That system's made to grow with you. It's as simple as changing out the brackets in the future. We know that extrication tools are always evolving. I know in my career, I've seen the hydraulic to battery extrication evolve. So, I mean, it's going to be as simple as if you buy an FMI Susan, 10 years down the road, you buy new tools. It's just contacting FMI. Hey, I have an FMI Susan. I need these new brackets. This is the new tool I have. And we're going to have the new brackets for that. They're going to bolt right onto the extrusion onto that post. And now your Susan's going to grow with you well into the future. New tools on it, adjustability aspect of the unistrut in the compartment. Everything that we mount is mounted to that unistrut. So, yeah, it's just everything's very much future thinking and the ability to adjust and add new tools in the future.
Perfect. Well, we covered a lot. There's probably so much more we could cover about FMI, but if the audience wants to learn more about FMI, how can they find out more information?
Yeah, of course. Check us out on our FMI Facebook page, our FMI website, fmico.com. And of course, just pick up the phone and give us a call.
All right, perfect. Well, Oran, Zach, I want to thank you both for sitting down with me today so we can learn a bit more about FMI, a little bit about its history, a little bit about where it is now, and of course about the configurator and how important compartment management is beyond just the mounting of the tools. Again, this has been Chris Mc Loone with Oran McNabb and Zach Summers, both of FMI. Have a good one and stay safe. Thanks again, guys.